Hello and welcome to Rock Paper Shotgun, where this week I've been exploring space rocks with a shotgun. That's thanks to The Outer Worlds, which this week has received an outpouring of love, with some even calling it the saviour of the first-person RPG. Considering the last one we got was Fallout 76, this ain't hard. Certainly on the surface there's lots to love here. I mean, come on, it gives you a shrink ray that makes tiny bandits sound like they've been huffing on helium. And one of your companions is a freaking battle vicar, preaching 1 second and then emptying shotguns into monsters the next. The Outer Worlds is a game of 100 tiny neat touches. I mean, I love that you can order one of your companions to basically dropkick anyone you meet in the game.
Come on now!
And there's the fact that it has one of the most glorious levelling up sounds of all time. Listen to that. That little blast of heaven is taken from the game's main theme, which is a fantastic tune in its own right, even when downgraded for a honky-tonk piano. But for all it does right, my praise for The Outer Worlds is tempered by some caveats, or maybe it's more accurate to say that I had to recalibrate exactly what to expect from The Outer Worlds in order to click with it. It's a game that looks like it might be one thing, basically Fallout in space, but it's actually quite a bit different. I'm calling it a small RPG with big consequences, and I'm going to explain what that means in this review. Of course, the fictional setting of The Outer Worlds, Halcyon, is one plagued by evil corporate interests. You are a lone hero trying to defy the will of the faceless board of directors to save a ship of frozen colonists, which makes it a bit hypocritical to shoehorn in my own corporate pitch, which is to visit the Rock Paper Shotgun Displate store. Yes, we've partnered with Displate, who make fancy metal posters. There's a link to our hand-picked choices in the description, and it covers everything from Cyberpunk to The Witcher 3. And if you do buy anything, a bit of that money comes back to the channel, so please do have a look. Anyway, back to The Outer Worlds. I mentioned that you might think it's Fallout in space, and that would be fair. I mean, we thought it was that too in our earlier preview video. I mean, just look at the similarities, the way that NPCs lock you into a dead-eyed staring contest when you start a chat, or the computers with their CRT screens and the mechanical clack of the keyboard, or the comedy foodstuffs that fill your inventory, or the giant moon-headed mascot of Space's Choice who's basically the vault boy of The Outer Worlds, or the way that you can loot ridiculous items from the tiniest chunk of bandit body. All this stuff is Fallout as hell. The biggest mechanical similarity is the focus on slow motion time during combat. Instead of aiming at limbs with Fallout's VATS, The Outer Worlds uses time dilation that gives you a headspace to work out who to attack next. It's a bit different to VATS, as guns here don't suffer from terrible accuracy. What you point at is what you shoot, and targeting specific limbs guarantees debuffs, like blinding a head or maiming a limb. Because of this, it's a lot more powerful than VATS, which explains why its energy easily depletes, and as I explain later, why you might want to play on a higher difficulty. Like Fallout, it's not going to dazzle anyone as a shooter, but I do appreciate the option to ask my friend to drop kick a caterpillar. Considering that Obsidian made Fallout New Vegas for Bethesda, none of this will come as a surprise, but it does make The Outer Worlds, initially at least, seem a little overly familiar. We know that Bethesda are working on their own sci-fi RPG, Starfield, and it's quite easy to believe that it might look something like this. That isn't necessarily a problem, but making the comparison does reveal areas where The Outer Worlds feels maybe less ambitious than Fallout. Smaller things stand out. The lack of a third-person option feels a bit budget, especially considering how cool some of the armour and costumes look. I shouldn't have to stand still to trigger the remote camera, or stick my awesome top hat onto a companion in order to admire it. And I find it super budget that lockpicking and computer hacking are just a button press compared to the proper minigames in Fallout. I miss the risk-reward of trying to jimmy a lock. I also find the Outer Worlds violence to be quite tame compared to Fallout. Some people won't care about cartoon decapitations and ragdolling enemies, but if you enjoy role-playing as a more vicious space bastard, it does limit the appeal. For me, the biggest difference, and the one I feel will be the biggest deal breaker for many people, is how bitty and limited the galaxy feels. Instead of large open world areas, the game is split into chunks of planets, and they all feel quite small, with steep cliffs and impassable water to stop you exploring too far. Even on Monarch, the largest area in the game, there's a sense of following a fixed path around the level, which is at odds with the untamed freedom all of its residents keep boasting of. The Outer Worlds locations feel more like Mass Effect's planets, very linear and offering little of the immersion and freedom I expect from a Fallout-esque game. This isn't to say they aren't pretty. The Unreal Engine cooks up some impressive moons and alien flora, but they don't feel alive. In all my time with the game, I never discovered something by accident. Every building has a specific mission tied to it, and by the time you've done a region's side quest, you've exhausted every inch. There's something very underwhelming about stepping out the airlock, only to learn within 10 minutes that there's not a lot there. The flip side to this is that a smaller environment is a more manageable environment, and this is certainly a lot more polished and jank-free than Bethesda's games or the 3D worlds Obsidian have built themselves. I certainly didn't see anything as weird as New Vegas's rotating head glitch, which is actually kind of a shame now I think about it. I'd happily sacrifice a tiny bit of polish for a bit more ambition, but I realise I might be in the minority on that. I guess the point is, if you are looking for a spiritual successor to Fallout and to step into a world with that exciting buzz of exploration and discovery, the Outer Worlds will not scratch that itch. And I'll admit, as I rattled through the first 5 hours or so, I felt slightly underwhelmed. But it was as I played on that I began to see that while this is a smaller RPG, it's far from shallow. You see, what it lacks in planetary breadth, it makes up for in narrative depth. It all begins in the character creation, where the vast wall of skills to play with reminds you that the Outer Worlds directors, Tim Kaine and Leonard Boyarsky, both worked on the original Fallout, which had a slightly different pitch to the modern Bethesda Fallout games. It was a game that worked very hard to accommodate the character you chose to roleplay as, not just asking you to navigate dilemmas, but shaping outcomes based on the very specific hero you created for the scenario. So you're encouraged to handcraft your hero here right down to the face, or just hit randomize until you get Mick Jagger. Weird. To give a broad example of how this process can impact the entire game, dialing down intelligence in character creation opens exclusive dumb dialogue options. It's a trick they used in Fallout 1, and it's every bit as effective here as you confuse people with your moronic bumbling.
Oh, they mean to. Just you wait.
But that is a very broad example. The spread of skills in character creation allows you to build all kinds of archetypes who will approach NPCs and obstacles differently. Want to be Mal Reynolds from Firefly? Well, pump points into handguns and a dose of charming persuasion, and maybe pick Parvati, the hammer-wielding mechanic, as your companion, as she's basically Kaylee from Firefly, right down to the cowboy speech patterns. If you'd rather play as a space ninja, you should invest in stealth, lockpicking and hacking to let you run circles around goons and open up the ability to turn security systems against their masters. Actually, on the subject of stealth, it's far more viable here than it ever was in Fallout, due to the ability to hide in long grass and a much clearer system of enemy alerts. You also get a cool holographic disguise for you and your companions, as long as you can find the right outfit data to plug into it. Shame it only appears a handful of times in key missions. I love these scenes of walking around where I shouldn't be. Of course, the idea of differing playstyles is hardly new to the RPG, but the way the Outer Worlds rewards all these different approaches is neat. Take a simple task to get to a door guarded by local mafia hoodlums. Just this tiny courtyard offers the option to talk your way in with dialogue skills, or shoot your way in with various weapon skills, or find the right data chip to holo disguise yourself, or break through this hole in the fence, sneak through the grass to enter this room, and program the computer to pump out toxic gas into the courtyard. At times like this, it reminded me more of an immersive sim than a traditional RPG, as you start turning robots against their owners and skulking through air vents. It actually has a little bit more in common with Deus Ex. But where this elastic approach to quests really shines is in conversation, and the way you can reshape the path of the story with even the simplest interjections or the tiniest character quirks. These range from massive changes, like the fact that you can basically go rogue early on, hand over your allies to the board, and then spend the rest of the game playing with the bad guys. And that's a substantial change, the kind of decision most games would chicken out about and leave right to the end. And it's impressive to see how committed Obsidian are to it. But it shines in the small decisions too. The writers have a lovely habit of folding in the outcomes of side quests into larger story decisions. Helping smaller characters might help convince someone more important at a key junction, or a piece of information you find in a side quest might open up a dramatic avenue in the story's conclusion. Jump back into earlier saves and start making different decisions, and you'll be amazed at how many of them are reflected in future events, revealing the vast network of narrative cogs churning beneath. It's lucky really, as many of the side quests themselves are pretty generic. Lots of variations of go into the abandoned facility and kill or collect a thing. Even the more unusual quests are direct repeats of things I feel like I've played 1,000 times before. A weird family who turn out to be cannibals? Check. An apartment with a body that triggers a murder mystery? Check. A guy looking for his friends who turns out to be a bad guy looking for some victims? Well, it's often cliched stuff, but the way they tie into something bigger does help you get past it. All of this adds up to a story with considerable replay value. Not since The Witcher 2 with its amazing diverging middle act have I been so quick to jump back in and take the story in a different direction. Companions definitely contribute to this. They're very present in the action by chatting with each other as you explore or butting into conversations.
I could start something if you want. Just say the word.
Look at my face, Felix. Do I look like I'm in a mood for your nonsense?
It means you'll want to use replays to spend time with them all. I've seen some people call them boring and say that they're hard to tell apart, but I think of them more as being grounded and relatable. Well, apart from the giant cleaning bot that spends the whole time spraying acid and shouting out weird cleaning puns. Perhaps I clicked more with the companion writing because I found the anti-corporation satire that dominates the game to be lacking in bite. For all the naughty things Halcyon's board are up to, it's really nothing compared to the dreadful shit companies do to us in real life. Actually, on the subject of companions, it's also worth noting that having two by your side turns the game into a complete cakewalk on normal difficulty, so you definitely want to bump it up a notch. If you are just here for the story, normal will prove little problem, but it's only on harder difficulties that I felt the need to dig into the game's wider systems, upgrading weapons and armors with mods, or tinkering with weapons to increase their level and damage output, and the weird health inhaler system that sees you mixing multiple products into one boosting shot. On normal difficulty, you are never in enough trouble to really need any of this stuff. In a game about deadly consequences, it makes sense to up the deadliness to make them count. And that difficulty issue is indicative of the Outer Worlds' wider challenge, that a lot of its best ideas don't shine unless you dig a bit deeper. It's a game that gets smarter over time as the consequences of your actions snowball throughout the story, or as you start a new game and see how differently things can play out. Likewise, the smaller levels and relative shortness of the game, you can get through the main story in 15 hours if you focus on it, makes more sense when you realise that it's a story designed to be replayed and enjoyed a couple of times over. I've mentioned The Witcher 2 already, but that was another game that took this approach, a tale short short enough to be experienced several times without becoming boring. I don't think The Outer Worlds is as good as Geralt's second adventure. I personally prefer swords to ray guns, but it is an approach to RPG storytelling that I hope more people will adopt. This isn't Fallout in space, but as long as you know that going in, you can definitely enjoy it for what it is. And those are my thoughts on The Outer Worlds, and considering you can play the whole game on Xbox Game Pass for PC for just a handful of pocket change, it seems mad not to give it a go, doubly so if you've not yet used your free trial. With the money you save on that, maybe you could, say, take a look at our Displate store. Yes, thanks again to Displate for sponsoring the channel, and please do use the link in the description to check out our top poster picks. There's over 500,000 designs, and Displate's unique metal posters are built to last and use a magnet mounting system that doesn't involve drilling into your walls with power tools, which is always good. And not only will you be supporting the channel, but you'll be supporting the environment. For every Displate sold, 10 trees are planted, so it gets the thumbs up from our resident eco-warrior Alice. If you have any questions about The Outer Worlds, please do pop them in the comments, where I will be happy to answer them. And if you are playing the game yourself, do share your reviews with us in the comments. It's always good to know what people think. And if you did enjoy this video, maybe think about giving this video a like and subscribing to Rock Paper Shotgun for more videos like it. And why not check out our recent reviews of Ghost Recon Breakpoint or Disco Elysium to see what we've been up to. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you again soon. Bye for now.
Heads up, jackass!